Endurance Junkie Podcast, episode 81. Hey Junkies, what's up? Thanks for joining me on a new episode of the Endurance Junkie Podcast, the show where I will be interviewing some of the fastest, smartest, and most inspiring people active in the endurance world today. Now, if you like these little interviews and don't want to miss any future episodes, head over to iTunes or Stitcher and subscribe to the show. And while you're at it, I would also appreciate a rating and a review, as it's one of the best ways for potential new listeners to find us. So it's really important, and I appreciate everyone who has done so far. Feel free to visit the website, junkiepodcast.com, for the complete archives and show notes pages, and there's a contact section at the bottom. So feel free to send me your comments and suggestions for possible future guests. I would really love to hear from you guys. Alright, on to today's show. Faye Stenning is a Canadian professional Spartan racer on the Reebok Spartan Pro Team. Faye ran her first Spartan race in 2013. 3 years later, she was signed on the Spartan Pro Team, finished second in the US Spartan Championship Series, third at the Spartan World Championship, and managed to hold the number one spot in the global world ranking throughout 2016. Aside from being totally addicted to pushing her body to the limit, Faye is 100% focused on her ultimate goal of being crowned world champion. Hi Faye, thanks for coming on the show here today. Now for those of us who don't know you, can you start off by telling us a bit about yourself, your sporting background, and how you ended up in obstacle racing?
Yeah, so my name is Faye Stenning, and I live in Canada, and I'm a professional Spartan racer. I've been kind of Spartan racing since 2013, and just kind of got signed professionally in 2016, and I was able to leave my job in 2017 and do this full time.
But you only race Spartan, is that correct?
Yeah, I only really race Spartan races. I don't know. There's just so many of them that there's all these other series as well, and I just kind of didn't want to spread myself too thin. The championship series races are a lot and very competitive, so I just wanted to be kind of rested up for those ones and focus on that series.
Okay. So yeah, what's your sporting background growing up?
I come from, I've been running since a really young age, since grade 8. And then I ran track and cross country all the way through university. But I just kind of didn't have much success at many ball sports or team sports. It wasn't until distance running that I really started to kind of find my sports. So track and cross country. Yeah.
Were you competitive in high school and as a youngster?
I was competitive all through university. I was an all-Canadian in cross country, so fairly competitive, and then took a break after university, and then a couple years later found obstacle course racing.
Yeah. So how did you end up then in obstacle course racing?
Just kind of by fluke. My boyfriend at the time just wanted to do one that was in our hometown, and I thought it was really silly at first. I was like, this isn't a real sport. It's there's no competition. I was had instant success. It wasn't until I started to travel for them and go to the States and kind of to some of the bigger races that it kind of dawned on me that this was a sport that was growing and that there were already at the time a few pros at it. So that kind of became kind of my goal, was to eventually get done.
You instantly fell in love with the sport after that first race?
Yeah, I wouldn't say after the first race. After the first few races in Canada, I thought it was a bit silly, and it was kind of something that I was doing more recreationally, just something that me and my boyfriend at the time, we could just sort of something active together on our weekends. But then we did start traveling for them, and it wasn't until we started traveling to them that I found just the mix of being able to travel and do something and compete kind of all in one was what really drew me. So I became, I was working full time, but it was every weekend I was going to compete somewhere new. And it was really, really fun. It was just kind of our hobby that we did. And then it just just turned into kind of a career for me. But definitely started off like purely recreational, and then kind of each race kind of got more and more hooked.
Yeah, and I guess you immediately had some pretty success because of your successful running background.
Yeah.
That definitely helped.
I think that like a lot of the top obstacle course racers come from track or cross country or some form of running. The competitions are like 90% running. So you got to kind of have that like aerobic base and that foundation of running to be successful at it. Not to say that there aren't people that don't come from a running background that don't do well. It's just it's a lot less likely. A lot of people come from running.
Yeah, of course, it's a majority of the races is running. So that was 2013. With 2017, you said that you already a couple of athletes that were racing as pros, but it was a young sport at the time. It still is now, but for some reason it's booming worldwide. I mean, you got the Spartan Races, you've got Tough Mudder, you've got multiple series going on. What do you think makes this sport so attractive, and why do you see like people of all athletic capabilities participate in these events?
I think that there's like been a trend in the fitness industry for a while, probably since Spartan racing and obstacle course racing started to take off. There's been sort of this trend towards functional fitness, and this is kind of where CrossFit started to come into too. And so people are training at the gym in these like really functional ways. And I think people just want a way to test their training, to test like what they're doing in the gym to see if it's actually kind of having any functional results in terms of, it's fun training, but it's more fun training when you're training towards a specific goal. So, there was CrossFit competitions that came out, and now there's these races, which is like kind of like more of the endurance side of kind of a CrossFit type competition. So I think it just kind of matches with the trend in the fitness industry, kind of towards more functional fitness. And I think people are just liking the social aspect of it. I think that's what the main draw of this sport is. Other sports are very like, you go to the race or you go to the tournament and it's like kind of done after that. Like everyone goes their separate ways. This is very social focused, and there's always a good party after the race. And I think that not only that also draws attraction to kind of open class competitors and just kind of your weekend warrior crowd. And obviously if you can draw those types of people in, that's where your mass participation comes from.
Yeah, and I guess it's pretty easy to get started in the sport. I mean, you don't need a bike, you don't need to go to the swimming pool. You can, if you go out and you have your running shoes on and you can already train your running, and then if you go to the gym a couple of times a week, you can really do some specific training for it.
Yeah, and it's very it's a well-rounded sport in the sense that any sort of athlete can find something in obstacle course racing that they're good at, and it will totally discover your weaknesses as well. So everyone, some people are competing and they're so proficient at the obstacles or the strength stuff or the running, but everyone kind of has something that they kind of dominate at within the race, and I think that kind of keeps people coming back, just that sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, you touched on the social aspect as well. I've got some friends who do this on a regular basis as well, and what they often do is they just go out as a group, and then they start the race as a group and finish as a group. Is that something that you see as well in those Spartan races?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of teams that go out in groups and start and finish together. And I mean, their Spartan racing can kind of be, or obstacle course racing in general can kind of be what you want it to be. I mean, there's corporate, people are doing this as corporate team bonding. People are doing this as professional athletes. People are doing this just to get off the couch and challenge themselves. People are doing just because they like to travel and like to be in the social community. So it kind of has something for everyone. And I think that's why it's having success and growing so fast.
And for some reason, people just like to get dirty.
Yeah, people just like to get dirty. I think it's just sort of the polar opposite of people's normal lives, being kind of very simple and indoors and clean and safe. And this is kind of that sort of outside escape for them, that's an adrenaline rush, and bringing them back also to their childhood roots of just playing in nature and playing with their friends and and climbing and running and just I think it's just like a almost like human nature, human instinct to just want to be outside and move. So I think it's a lot more fun than kind of traditional gym workouts. And I think people are realizing that. And I think just the whole being outside has a whole bunch of health benefits. Just aside from, fitness, it's great to get some fresh air. And I don't think a lot of people have their chance in their everyday lives to get outside enough. So I think that's a huge draw as well.
Cool. Do they have like kids events as well? Because I've got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and they spend a lot of time in front of their iPads. Maybe you should put them. I should get them into these races.
Yeah, no, they do. They've got kids events as well.
Okay, I'll check that out. All right, can you talk a bit about your own progression in the sport? So you started in 2013. Now you've got you're professional since this year. You quit your job. So when did you realize that I'm pretty good at this and I can make a living out of it?
I started in 2013 and was just kind of focusing on the Canadian races and had a lot of success at that. I wasn't as good of an athlete then as I am now. I was relying solely off my running to win these races. And as I competed at the bigger races and I went to World Championships my first year my second year in 2014, and I got totally crushed. Like I came 12th, but I had higher expectations. And I just think that as it's got more competitive, it's kind of pushed us athletes to kind of work on everything, not just rely off our strengths and ignore our weaknesses. So I've just kind of worked on something new and tried to become more well-rounded and sort of been climbing my way to the top. So I was 9th in 2015 at Worlds, and then 3rd in 2016, and then 4th this year. It was kind of I was signed in 2016, and then after World Championships when I was 3rd, that's when, I got the opportunity with sponsors and stuff like that. And it was kind of feasible to leave my day job and do this professionally.
Yeah. Did it have a big impact on your performance to have, that extra time to train and to recover?
I would say it almost had more of a negative impact on my performance. I think this was my first year not working and doing it, and I think I just kind of overdid it. I think there's something to be said for having restrictions on how much training is reasonable to do. So, this year was my first year just doing this full time, and I had some highs for sure. Had a good World Championship race, but there was lots of races that I was disappointed on. So it kind of had the opposite effect of what I thought it would, but excited that I'll be obviously doing it again next year, and we'll kind of learn from a few of these mistakes.
Yeah, so you're figuring out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what's so fun about the sport is like triathlon or distance running, there's certain training philosophies that the pros will follow in those sports just because people have researched and trained all sorts of professionals at those sports already, where this is new. So we're kind of the guinea pigs for just trying to figure out what exactly works and what doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So it's been a lot of fun. I kind of feel like sort of like an exercise scientist trying to kind of discover how to best train for this sport, because there's so many different aspects of it. It's very hard to get stronger and faster at the same time. I come from distance running when it's like you just want to be fast and don't worry at all about strength. And there's a lot of people that come from strength and power sports that don't worry about distance. So it's hard to bring those two together, and I don't think anyone's quite figured it out yet.
Yeah. So you do everything by yourself. You put your own coaching, your own planning. You don't work with an external coach.
No. So I was working earlier this year with a kind of an obstacle coach who I would meet every once in a while, and we just work on some sort of movement stuff and some sort of anaerobic interval training. But no, primarily I've been training myself ever since I started this sport. I do use my business partner, Jessica O'Connell. She oversees my overall periodization and my running. And I go to her when things aren't really working out, and she'll tweak things. So, she tweaked a lot before my World Championships and had a lot of success when she made a few changes on my program. So next year she'll be full in charge of my running. and my mileage with that and my periodization with that. So, yeah, she's been great to have. She went to the Olympics in the 5,000 in Rio in 2016, so she knows her stuff.
Probably she will. Yeah, what does a typical training week look like for you then? Is it mainly running with some gym work, or is it more gym work and a bit of running?
Yeah, it's mostly running. It's about like 80% running.
Okay.
Maybe 70 to 80% running. I don't actually do any other forms of cross training in terms of aerobic. I'm just run. But the running is always a mixture of easy recovery runs. There's always a long run. There's usually a tempo or a long interval day, and then there's either a hill or a shorter kind of lactic threshold work. So that's kind of the running, and then I do just have usually one to two like traditional lift days where I'm like lifting heavy and doing a lot of work on like my back, so pull-ups and rows and stuff like that, and then deadlifts and a lot of lunges and stuff like that. And then usually one day a week I'll do sort of a higher intensity circuit training, which will incorporate some of the heavy carries and some stuff work with sandbags and just more metabolic conditioning in the gym.
Yeah, okay. So how has your 2017 season been so far?
Yeah, and it's been good. So I was like, I wasn't super happy with the NBC series, the championship series. Mm-hmm. I placed 5th in that, which was a little bit of a disappointment. I was 2nd in that series last year, but had a good world championship race, placed 4th in worlds, which I was happy about. And I've been kind of like doing races since worlds. I'm done now, but was on kind of a winning streak towards the end of the year. So did well by the end of the year, but just timing was a little bit off. Took me a little bit longer to get in shape than I thought, so just need to kind of push that fitness up a little earlier in the season.
Yeah. Has the competition in the women's division become a bit more and more dense these last couple of years?
Oh yeah, majorly. I mean, it's been in 2016. It was kind of me and Lindsay that were going back, and I think Lindsay won. Lindsay Webster, she's another Canadian. She was first in the series. I was 2nd, but it was like me and her going back and forth. And this year, there's a ton of girls. Like we were all the top 5 girls were flip-flopping positions all season. So, it was kind of every race was sort of anyone's day. So it was very exciting. You definitely couldn't predict the order of girls that would come in at the finish line. So very, very competitive this year. And even that tier after the 5th place, kind of 5 to 15, they're phenomenal athletes. And I expect some of those girls to move up as well in 2018. So, yeah, it's very competitive.
Yeah, so you definitely need to lift your own game.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone needs to it's going to kind of come down what everyone's doing in the off season here, the January, February, March months, and who's working on what and who's putting the work in those months, I think is going to determine, who's going to do well in the series this year.
Yeah. So your goals for 2018 are the same? You're still doing the Spartan races and trying to get as good, win the series again and then focus on the World Championship?
Yeah. So I just want to place a lot higher in the series this year. So I'd like both like a top 3 finish in the series and then a top 3 finish at Worlds. That's kind of my goal. Like my ultimate goal in the sport is to be a world champion. So finish first at Tahoe or wherever Worlds is. That's kind of always been my goal. And the highest position I've had is 3rd. So I just kind of like to continue to improve that. So that's always the goal.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. You touched on it before. The coaching business. You started that together with your partner there. Why did you start it? And who's your clientele?
Yeah. So my business partner Jessica O'Connell. She just came off the Olympics in 2016, and she's making a push for the 2020 Olympics in the 5,000. And we've been good friends, and we used to run together in high school and in university. And it was just kind of like, why not start this? We're both kind of living that professional athlete lifestyle. Sometimes it's hard to just day in, day out train, and always think about yourself and your goals. So it's been nice just kind of having an outlet and using what we've learned. We both have kinesiology degrees, so what we've learned in school as well as what we've learned in our own training and trying to help others. I know I was getting a lot of people messaging me on social media asking me about training and what I do, and it was actually taking a lot of my time to answer all these questions. So I just figured I might as well make something a little bit more formal with it and try and help people out, and also try and obviously bring in some income for myself and Jessica, because as a Canadian Olympian it can be kind of challenging financially. So so we've been having fun, and we'll take anyone. I mean, we just want people with a good attitude and who want to be there and want to be helped, but we don't care whether you're running a 35-minute 10K or whether you're still trying to break an hour in a 10K. We take all sorts of skill levels and accommodate all sorts of needs, whether you're working full-time, not working at all, have kids. We've made very individualized programs and don't template really anything. So.
Yeah, okay. Now you lived the life of a runner and an athlete most of your life. Then you just sort of stepped away from the sport a bit. Then you got into obstacle course racing. Now as a pro, I guess you even have to take more care of what you do with your life. Do you feel like you have certain sacrifices that you have to make to compared to the weekend warriors or us amateurs?
I don't think I think if you're doing it because you love it, I just don't think there's really any sacrifices that you need to make. I think that if you're an amateur in the sport and you just want to go out on weekends and try your best and have a good time, I mean, obviously it might cut up you're going to have to train for it, and it might cut up to some of your free time, but I don't think it should be looked as a sacrifice. I think it should be looked more as like a privilege to be able to be healthy enough to be able to train for something like this, and even having the funds to be able to go travel to these races and pay the entry fees. We're a really fortunate group of people that have that are healthy enough and financially stable enough to be able to go do something as fun as obstacle course racing. So no, I wouldn't look at it as sacrifices. I would look at it as just sort of a lifestyle that people choose.
Okay. It's you got a relatively short career, but still, what do you see as your biggest achievement in the sport so far, and what's your biggest disappointment?
I think my biggest achievement was third place at World Championships last year, and just doing well in that U.S. Championship Series, and just the achievement overall of just actually even initially getting signed on the pro team. That was probably so far like the biggest achievement. And in terms of disappointment, I think there was just a few races this year that I was disappointed in. But that's about it, and I wouldn't even really call that a disappointment. I would just call that maybe a poor preparation and training on my part, which resulted in a not so great performance. But no real huge disappointments yet. I just think I love doing this, so even if it doesn't go perfect for me, it's still I'm still not having to sit in an office all day and work. So I'm happy whether the results are in my favor or whether I have a few bad days. It's not the end of the world for me.
Oh, okay. What's the greatest piece of advice you've ever received in your sport?
I don't know. Like, I just think that, I don't know. I don't know who like gave me this advice, but just kind of to not take yourself so seriously and just kind of have fun with it. I mean, I always remind myself that, at the end of the day, this is just like obstacle course racing. And this was initially just something I did on my spare time as a hobby. And I try and remember why I started this, and has nothing to do with sponsors or money or anything like that, or beating people. It just really has to do with the need to, and the lifestyle of being active and being fit and being outside and seeing different places around the world. So just try and remind myself of how I initially got into the sport and why I'm here, sort of separate myself from the sort of external pressures of being an athlete.
Yeah, I was going to ask that next. You don't feel the pressure from sponsors and stuff like that now that you're a full-time athlete, that you have to perform, you have to be on the podium and get the exposure?
Yeah, like my sponsors are all very amazing, and they don't put any pressure on me, but I think it's just, even if I didn't have sponsors, there's always that pressure that I put on myself, just because I have made the conscious decision to leave a job to do this. So it has that sort of element of this is kind of all I'm doing right now, and you better be good at it, because I've given up like a career for this. So so that's pressure, but at the same time, it's also a good pressure, because it is very motivating at the same time. And
yeah, okay, cool. How can people get in touch with you if they want to, Faye?
So you can follow me on Instagram. It's Faye Stenning _OCR. My Facebook athletes page, which is Faye Stenning _OCR as well. And then my coaching business is Grit Coaching. So you can find that at www.gritcoaching.net.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I'll put those links up on the show notes page. Feel free to give some love to your sponsors.
Yeah, so my sponsors, the Spartan Pro team, obviously, Optimum Nutrition, Refresh Inc., and Yokohama Tires. So those are my major sponsors. So big shout out to them, and thanks for their support.
Okay, cool. Anything else you want to plug?
Nope.
No? Okay, well, final question to round it up. You step out of the house after this interview and you find a lottery ticket that ends up winning $10 million. What do you do?
Oh my goodness, $10 million.
You can even choose US or Canadian. So there's a big
yeah, pick US. I want like a beautiful house on the ocean. That's what I would probably spend it. Just a nice place. I don't know where, but somewhere that's hot and somewhere on the ocean, and maybe even a few houses, some cool places.
Okay, but you still
and maybe a few trips.
You still keep racing?
Oh yes, I'd still keep racing.
Okay, without the pressures. Cool stuff. Thanks for your time, Faye. Much appreciated.
Thank
you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, Junkies, thanks for listening to this episode with Faye Stenning. Now, I've been trying to get some more of these obstacle course racers to come on the show, but they seem to be hard to get hold of, and they're pretty busy, but I'll keep trying. It's a booming sport, and I want to get a couple more of these pros on the show, so fingers crossed. Alright, happy Thanksgiving everyone, and I hope you'll join me on Monday for my chat with Australian ITU superstar Ashley Gentle. Cheers!